The entire building went silent the moment she stepped into the elevator, like the world held its breath around her. Her heels tapped sharply against the marble floor, the kind of confident rhythm only a woman who had fought too many battles could make. But then, as the doors slid shut, the hum of the city outside faded, and one detail broke the illusion of perfection, the gleaming prosthetic leg that caught the fluorescent light and shimmered like steel courage carved into human form. She stood tall, immaculate, powerful, and heartbreakingly alone. No one knew how much it cost her to look unbreakable every single day. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected ways people change our lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means everything. Isabella Hart wasn't just a CEO, she was a storm of ambition wrapped in a tailored suit, a woman who had rebuilt her life piece by painful piece. Years earlier, she had lost her leg in an accident that shattered not only bones but the illusion that hard work guaranteed safety. Overnight, she had become someone pitied, someone stared at, someone who had to learn how to walk again when she had once run the world. But she refused to allow tragedy to cage her. Instead, she rose higher than before, pushing through every doubt, every tremor of fear, every moment she felt the familiar sting of loneliness. Success became her armor. Work became her refuge. And independence became the wall she didn't know how to stop building. People respected her, even admired her. But admiration wasn't the same as companionship. And respect wasn't the same as love. Relationships felt like puzzles she had no time to solve, and vulnerability seemed like a luxury she could no longer afford. So she stayed alone. Safer that way, she told herself. Easier. Until the day she met the man in the elevator, the quiet one with soft eyes and a work uniform that didn't match the corporate shine around him. He was a maintenance technician, someone who kept the building running but never drew attention. His name tag said, Mike. He had the kind of gentle presence that made the small space feel oddly warm, and beside him stood a little girl with a pink backpack covered in unicorn stickers. The child looked up at Isabella with that innocent curiosity only kids carry, pure, unfiltered, without the judgment adults thought they hid well. Isabella expected the girl to stare at her prosthetic leg like others often did, but instead the child's eyes widened with awe. Not fear. Not discomfort. Awe. As if she were looking at a superhero. That single moment shifted something inside Isabella's chest, like a locked door creaking open after years of silence. She wasn't used to being looked at with wonder. She wasn't used to being seen at all. Mike noticed his daughter staring and started to apologize, but Isabella offered a small nod, the closest she ever came to reassurance. She wasn't sure why she felt the need to comfort them, maybe because they were the first to make the elevator feel less like a glass box and more like a shared space, a human space. In the days that followed, Isabella found herself crossing paths with Mike and his daughter, Lily, more often than seemed coincidental. Sometimes in the lobby, sometimes in the cafeteria, sometimes in that same elevator. Lily would greet her with the brightest smile, and Isabella, despite her flawless poker face perfected over years of boardrooms, found herself waiting for those little interactions. The girl talked about school, unicorns, turtles, and everything in between. Each time she spoke, Isabella felt warmth uncotting in places she had forgotten were even tight. Mike, in contrast, stayed respectful, quiet, and surprisingly perceptive. He didn't look at Isabella the way others did, not with intimidation, not with curiosity, not with that nervous energy people had around powerful figures. He simply saw her. As a person. As someone real. One stormy evening, Isabella worked later than usual. The building felt dimmer, emptier, and colder. When she stepped into the elevator, she noticed a tool bag left behind. Before she could call security, she heard hurried footsteps. Mike appeared, slightly out of breath, explaining he had been fixing the ventilation system. She nodded, ready to return to silence, but then the power flickered, and the elevator jutted to a stop. The air stilled. The lights dimmed. Isabella felt the old fear crawl up her spine, the fear of losing control, the fear of being trapped, the fear that still lingered from the accident that had changed her life. She tried to steady her breath, but Mike noticed the tremor in her posture. He quietly sat on the floor, gently encouraging her to do the same without saying a single patronizing word. He didn't pry, didn't stare, didn't ask if she was okay. He simply existed beside her, calm and steady. And somehow, his presence grounded her. Minutes stretched longer than they should have. She found herself talking, not the rehearsed, polished talking she did with investors, but the raw kind that stumbled out when walls finally cracked. She admitted how exhausting it was to always be strong, how lonely success felt, how people only saw the title, not the woman beneath it. Mike didn't interrupt or offer empty reassurances. He listened, really listened, in a way no one had in years. When the elevator finally restarted and the doors slid open, something unspoken had shifted between them. Over time, Isabella's guard softened. She found excuses to be in the maintenance wing, pretending to check building reports when really, she found peace in the quiet hum of tools and the sight of someone working with real, honest hands. Mike, too, began to talk, not about flashy achievements or ambitions, but about the love he had for his daughter, the loss of Lily's mother, and the struggles of raising a child alone. He carried guilt, worry, exhaustion, yet he faced life with a kind of humble bravery that left Isabella in awe. Lily grew especially attached to Isabella. The girl would draw pictures of her, stick figures with a sparkly metal leg and a cape that fluttered behind her. She called her Super Bella, a name that made Isabella's chest tighten with feelings she didn't dare name. The bond they all formed was gentle, fragile, and unexpected, like fragile glass glowing in sunlight. One evening, after a long board meeting that drained the last of her resolve, Isabella stepped outside to find Lily waiting with Mike near the exit. The little girl ran to Isabella, holding a small folded paper. Inside was a drawing of all three of them holding hands. For a moment, Isabella couldn't breathe. She had spent years convincing herself she didn't need anyone, that solitude was strength, that depending on others was weakness. But here was this child offering her a place in a world she never thought she could belong to. Mike stood behind Lily with a soft, hesitant smile, as if afraid he had overstepped. But Isabella saw the hope in his eyes, and something inside her cracked open completely. She invited them both to dinner. That single invitation turned into many. Dinners became walks. Walks became laughter. Laughter slowly built into trust. Isabella found herself smiling more, sleeping better, and looking forward to moments that didn't involve spreadsheets or deadlines. She learned to cook Lily's favorite meals, learned the quiet rhythm of Mike's company, learned how to let herself be imperfect around people who didn't expect perfection. And Mike? He learned to see beyond the armor she wore, finding the gentle strength beneath it. He admired her resilience, not because she was powerful, but because she had survived her pain and still found ways to be kind. Their connection grew not from romance at first, but from understanding, two people who had been broken differently but healed beautifully together. One night, months later, while Lily slept on Isabella's couch after watching cartoons, Mike and Isabella stood in the soft glow of the living room lamp. Isabella, without her prosthetic on, leaned against the armrest, her vulnerability visible but no longer something she hid. Mike sat beside her, quiet as always. He didn't rush. Didn't assume. Didn't move closer until she looked up at him with a softness he had never seen in her before. That was the moment everything changed. Their love didn't come in a sudden burst, it grew in layers. Slow. Gentle. Healing. Isabella had spent years believing her missing leg made her broken, unlovable, incomplete. But the men beside her showed her she was whole in ways she had never noticed. And Lily, sweet, joyful Lily, became the bridge between their worlds. Eventually, Isabella found herself feeling something she had sworn she no longer needed, a sense of family. Something warm, imperfect, real. Something she had thought life had taken away forever. And in that newfound wholeness, she discovered a truth she had never allowed herself to believe, that love wasn't just for those untouched by tragedy. Love could find anyone. Even her. If this story has touched your heart in any way, please like, comment, and share. Your engagement truly helps support the channel and allows more stories like this to be told. Before the ending, here's a special request: comment below what part of the story moved you the most. Because sometimes, the most beautiful moments in life begin in the most unexpected places, even in an elevator where a lonely CEO, a single father, and a little girl crossed paths and changed each other's lives forever.